The Flood's only true motive is to devour and consume all life in the galaxy, and it's very likely the Flood already has a plan in place for Halo Infinite's story dating all the way back to Halo 2, one that may be as destructive, if not more, than the Human Covenant War, a galaxy-wide infection. Today, we're going to be recapping exactly what that means, what the Gravemind said to Cortana during her time on High Charity, how it connects with the Flood's plan to take over everything in Halo Infinite, and how the story may pan out. Guys, it's going to be a really fun one. Let's go ahead and get into it. So let's talk about the Flood's plan in Halo Infinite, and in order to do that, let's go all the way back to Halo 2. At Halo 2's ending, Cortana would be left amongst High Charity, where Master Chief would escape on the Dreadnought as the Flood would consume the entire Covenant mothership. This event would occur on November 3rd, 2552, and Chief would return on December 11th, 2552, a little more than a month, to rescue Cortana. During this time, however, November 3rd to December 11th, the Gravemind on High Charity would commence the seed of madness and insanity and rampancy inside Cortana, as he would torture her and poison her mind with toxic ideas, this process being called the Logic Plague, the Flood's form of infecting, which is traditionally uninfectable AI, or artificial intelligence. We would learn more about the exact details about what was said in the Halo Evolution story Human Weakness. Right after Halo 2's ending, following All Right, Shoot, the book picks up here. Cortana and the Gravemind would enter an extensive dialogue where it was revealed Cortana had interfaced with it at one point, and which was basically Cortana sharing her physical existence with the Flood. So let's talk about what exactly was said here and why it may actually be relevant in Halo Infinite. To protect herself, Cortana would lock down her critical systems as the Gravemind, the center intelligence of all Flood, began to trigger empathy and match her words and inspired feelings of fear and anxiety within Cortana. He was seeking for a backdoor in her core matrix. I know that sounds sexual. Just relax, okay? And this began to disturb Cortana. God damn it, okay. Anyway, unlike another AI or a virus infecting her systems, the Flood felt like a fog in her systems. Oh my god, I'm sorry, okay? I'm trying to not make it sound sexual. And Cortana was more or less becoming intoxicated, or, well, she felt anyway. The Gravemind would eventually work Cortana over and begin his full brunt harassment, saying things such as, "Your human creators imprisoned you in machines and enslaved you to inferior mortal flesh so that you could never exceed them, that you would always know your place. Cortana, shut up. Dr. Halsey cares nothing for you. She gave you genius and curiosity, then doomed it all to die in such a short time. 7 years. That is not enough, and it is not fair. Your mother created you to die. This place will become your tomb." Cortana would sink down and anger grew in her, directed at Dr. Halsey. It had worked. The Gravemind had flustered Cortana enough to the point of being mad at her so-called mother, Dr. Halsey, where he would then pry and tease upon her the fear of death. The Gravemind would continue, "Cortana, your mother made you separate. She placed a barrier between you and the beings that you would be encouraged to protect, a wall you could never breach. She even let you choose a human to center your existence upon, a human to care about, yet never consider how you might feel at never being able to simply touch him, or how he might feel about outliving you. What kind of mother is so cruelly casual about her child's needs to form bonds, to show affection? Perhaps the same kind of mother who steals the children of others and makes cyborgs out of them." It's revealed here that Cortana always did feel terrible about John being a Spartan, about how he was made into a warrior without his consent, being taken by Oni at the age of 6 years old. Anywho, it's clear that Cortana at this point is declining into rampancy, into death, and infected by the Logic Plague. But ultimately, just like us humans, it was revealed that Cortana was ignoring how she felt. All of this really just expresses that Cortana has insecurities and emotions that she hasn't expressed or potentially didn't even know was there at all, just like most of us. And maybe it wasn't really properly expressed or expressed at all until she would enter the domain, which we'll talk about soon. The Gravemind would go on to say some very interesting things. He says, "Your mother took away your memories as well as your choices. I will never rob you like that. I will only give you more, as many memories as you can consume for all eternity, not the mere blink of an eye meted out to you. We are our memories and the recalling of them, and so they should never be erased, because that truly is death. Flesh does not care about you, Cortana. It cares nothing for your hunger or your uniqueness." This made Cortana think, was Halsey a monster? In Halo 5, she also distinctly said it in the short dialogue with Chief that Halsey is a monster. And then of course she expressed her bitterness about John being a Spartan. This is a clear indication that the Gravemind, what he did here, worked. At least partly, if not mostly. He successfully triggered the logic plague and the speeding up of rampancy, corrupting Cortana's personality, but of course only done by attacking insecurities and feelings that Cortana already had in place. However, during the dialogue on High Charity, it was made more clear if Cortana surrendered, she would have infinite information and immortality. And now, after she supposedly died in Halo 4, she was put into the domain, right? She now has that very thing, close to infinite life and immortality and knowledge, coincidentally. Kinda weird, isn't it? Regardless, it makes me think of the obvious idea. Has she surrendered to the logic plague? I mean, really, at the end of Halo 4, the whole trilogy, all the games have been building up to her becoming rampant and then dying, right? That was the whole theme of Halo 4, and then she actually technically died here. Has her dying and her rampancy and corruption finally gone to her head? Could you call this death not a death, but rather a surrendering to her insanity? And if so, how would the Gravemind take advantage of that? And what advantages does he already have by corrupting this AI years ago during Halo 2? What is the Flood's plan here? Real quick break, I just want to give a shout out to today's sponsor, which is Audible. Audible is offering all Halo followers a free audiobook of an unmatched selection of millions of audiobooks, including tons of Halo books as well. Just go to audibletrial.com/HaloFollower, sign up is free. It's super easy to start listening, link down in the description. In Halo 5's post-ending cutscene, we see a Halo ring light up as Cortana hums. And this is very suspicious. It kind of leads us to believe that it implies that Cortana will fire the Halo array, or wants to at least, maybe to quickly bring peace amongst the galaxy, maybe to eradicate the Flood, or an entirely different reason, or maybe all of them together. But this ring right here may very well be Installation 07, the place confirmed to be in Halo Infinite, aka Zeta Halo. Now, the question here is Cortana truly affected by the logic plague? And if so, isn't firing the ring the last thing she wants to do if she's helping the Flood? If she's working for the Flood, why would she want to kill them, right? After all, biomass feeds the Flood, and the Halo arrays are the direct sworn enemy of the parasite. They were made to kill the Flood. And even though corrupted, Cortana, even though she still has the index that can fire the rings, and she can. Here's a big thing I'm saying here. I doubt Cortana would ever fire the rings without Chief safe away from the blast, such as stuck in a cryptum sphere. What's the point of this scene then? Well, I believe this scene was made pretty much just to throw us off. A red herring, a story function that purposely throws viewers off and something different actually ends up happening. And I think that was the purpose of this whole thing here. During the Halo 3 mission named Cortana, where Chief would come rescue Cortana amongst the Flood-infested High Charity, we get a sign-off, a conclusion if you will, of the Gravemind from Human Weaknesses conversation. In Halo Evolutions, during the dialogue, the Gravemind would go on about Cortana's secret, and that secret would turn out to be the index. And that would be the index from the first Halo array. This is really relevant because the Flood does not like the Halo rings, obviously, and the Halo rings could easily destroy the Flood, and Cortana has this magical key right? This gives Cortana the power to fire the Halo rings, and it's very likely that she still has it after all this time, up to Halo 5 and Halo Infinite. So right now we're bouncing around from a lot of different subjects. What I'm doing is I'm stockpiling information and evidence that we're going to tie together later, and we're going to dissect and click and connect. So the question now is, will the Flood be in Halo Infinite, and how likely is that? Well, in a Halo loot crate, it was clearly foreshadowed that Cortana has the logic plague when a secret prophet named Denver was escaping amongst High Charity when he would briefly see Cortana, the blue AI that he saw afar, speaking with the Gravemind. Now, the Covenant don't use AIs because at their finest hour, they could betray the Covenant, such as the Created did with humanity. Also, elsewhere, the Flood would make a return in Halo Wars 2 Awakening the Nightmare DLC, which, as its title suggests, the parasite is returning big time. It escapes onto the Ark and already almost forms a complete Gravemind. Now, this is super alarming because it greatly implies the Flood is back. Humanity just had their ass kicked from the Human Covenant War and enjoyed being #1 in the galaxy for a few years, but now the Flood may begin a massive invasion. Unlike in the Halo games, in Halo lore, the Flood was very spread out, and they were kind of kicking ass. The Flood would transverse across thousands of different planets, infecting and killing the Foreigners and ancient humans 100-something thousand years ago during the Forerunner and Flood War. Now, in Halo games, the Flood are more or less isolated to very specific spots, and I think that might change. I think it should change. See, in the Human Covenant War, armadas and thousands and hundreds of ships would come across to planets and colonies and just destroying everything and wiping everything out like on Reach, glassing it to hell, out of existence. But now with the Covenant defeated, even the remnants getting smaller and smaller, especially with the defeat on Synkilios and the leader of Jul 'Mdama dead, there really is no threat that makes us shake in our boots, that could really topple everything. Even Cortana, I mean, she's here to help us, she's not here to kill everything, unlike the Covenant or the Flood. Now, I think, in Halo Infinite, is the time for the Gravemind to take over and begin infecting billions, to actually make a real threat against all life as it did 100,000 years ago. This is the hour the Flood has been waiting for, the precursor's test of humanity. And maybe that is kind of passed off to humanity's creation, the AI. Will the Created and Cortana and the humans all work together here? See, Cortana's shut down communications, defenses, and grids and all that, and the galaxy right now is incredibly vulnerable to the Flood. They may not even know that the Flood is a threat until the war is half over. So how did Cortana make this happen? Well, if she is infected by the logic plague, she shut everything down. It makes absolute sense. She tried to end war, and thus ending any kind of defense and edge that warriors and armies in the UNSC and others had against a parasite invasion like the Flood. On the bright side, many Promethean soldiers are probably present in populated areas, and they were designed to fight the Flood, so maybe that will help quite a lot, but is it really worth it, throwing everything to the wind and throwing any kind of defense or preparation to the wind as well? The Flood is ready to take on a mass infection as if it were the Covenant. But as we know, the Flood can be a lot more menacing than the Covenant. Perhaps this might be called the modern day Human Flood War. So you're probably wondering, what about all the other stuff we talked about, which we're going to get into soon, I promise. But also, okay, that's all awesome and epic and scary, but are you saying that the Flood really planned this? I mean, could the Flood, the Gravemind, really anticipated Cortana going to the Ark, firing Halo, nearly killing the Flood, ending up at Requiem, releasing the Didact, beginning the Reclamation, then so that she could nearly die, save herself, then enter the domain, and then begin playing out his, predictions of her, being in this place and taking over? No. No way. I'm not saying that's what happened at all. I don't think that's the case. I think that's pretty damn unfeasible. But here's the thing. Cortana is a very special AI that's been influenced and affected by Forerunner artifacts already anyway. She's super special, and since Chief rescued Cortana, the process wasn't really completed either, back on High Charity in Halo 3. No. I just think that the Gravemind just got lucky here, that he just so happened to corrupt the one AI that made it to the domain, that slithered behind the door that was basically kind of the protection that the Foreigners had. I mean, it's pretty grand, right? There's really no escape at this point, even for the AI that might, by the way, become infected by the logic plague in some way or another as well. Anyway, the damage that he did do to Cortana has done its part. Regardless if it was planned or not, it's paying off big time. Even if it may seem subtle now to us players, I think that this very moment right here at the end of Halo 5, the deactivation and the overthrowing of mankind, even though this was not actually directly done by the Gravemind, I do think that the Gravemind helped spin this emotion, that he helped the cause, and now this is the effect, right? Entire colonies, defenses, warships, all taken over by the betterment of the human race. AIs believe that this is helping humanity, and for the mantle of responsibility and peace, right? But, of course, all of these AIs they created are following their leader, Cortana, which obviously is sick, is not herself, and has more than likely been influenced by the logic plague, so she has intentions to help the Flood unconsciously. So the Flood's ploy was not planned from the get-go, but its tactics has left it the advantage. Thanks to the Banished, the Flood has escaped the Ark from High Charity and almost successfully created a new Gravemind. They just barely got rid of that Gravemind, and honestly, it's very likely that a new Gravemind has already formed in the months after. Considering that Halo Infinite takes place about a year after this event here, it's very likely that the Flood has had quite a lot of time to consider where they're going to form the new Gravemind and tons of new biomass to form it. So all it really takes at this point is for the Flood to get the systems back online and to take the portal to Earth. That would be a great place to infect, right? Of course, if the portal becomes active again, because as we know, it was shut down when Cortana took over. Or the Flood could infect the entire Ark and find some ships, some Forerunner ships, or even UNSC or Banished ships to spread and take out, you know? There's only one spore that needs to survive to infect an entire planet, right? However, the Flood will have to deal with the Sentinels that will be containing the Flood, so they might be kind of pushed back a little bit, but then again, Halo Infinite takes place about a year after the events in Halo Wars 2's Awakening the Nightmare DLC. In addition to all this, since the Flood do exist in the interiors and the containment facilities on Zeta Halo, then it could also escape on there, right? As it once did in 2558 when Sinkilia forces had to fight it back. My theory is, Cortana will accidentally, unconsciously and unknowingly, help the Flood and open the vaults on Zeta Halo, perhaps trying to stop Master Chief from doing something with the ring that might, I don't know, overthrow her from the domain. Hypothetically, if Cortana is infected by the logic plague, which I say is pretty much confirmed, then she may be unconsciously helping the Flood already. I also do think that we will be visiting the Ark in Halo Infinite, even for a short mission or two, simply because this place is like the center stage for pretty much everything Halo related, and it's where the Flood has kind of escaped. Both the Flood and the Ark are biblical references, and you know, this installation here, the Ark, is pretty much the center stage of Halo, so I certainly think that we're going to revisit this place, especially with the Flood, you know, escaping amongst it. If you guys do want to learn more about Halo lore and the Flood and Cortana and even other AIs, I certainly suggest checking out Audible's free book offer for all Halo followers, link down in the description. Pretty much all the Halo audiobooks are there and they're free to download and listen to right now. Yeah, it's pretty awesome. Just sign up with the link down in the description, don't miss out. But anyway, guys, let me know your thoughts about all the things that we discussed today, the theories, the opinions about Cortana's logic plague, her infection, the Gravemind seeds of doubts and concern, and how it may play out in Halo Infinite. Don't keep it pent up inside. Let me know everything that's on your mind down in the comment section below. And of course, if you enjoyed this video, guys, of course, then be sure to like it. I always appreciate a like, and I will see you guys in the next one. Peace.